inadequate handling of World War I a catalyst for the final crisis of autocracy in 1917.
Walk with me, comrade. Prior to World War I, the Russian government made moves to boost the underdeveloped agrarian economy. French investors, attracted by government deals, cheap labor, and tax breaks, eagerly pumped money into Russia to construct factories and mines. Even with this, Russia's economy was still pale in comparison to its Western European neighbors. Industrialization had also created new problems: urban growth, social disruption, demands for workers' rights, and political agitation. The peasants who relocated to the cities to work in the new factories found themselves enduring long working days, often up to 15 hours, in appalling, unsafe conditions. Politically, the Russian Empire was riddled with division and dissatisfaction, making it grounds for the growth of revolutionaries and anarchists. While the Russian economy had begun to modernize, the political system was still set in the late Middle Ages. It was ruled by an autocratic tsar, whose throne had been ordained by God. There was no parliament nor constitution to limit the tsar's power. The tsar had instigated a seemingly easy war in Japan in 1904 in order to expand. However, they underestimated the Japanese army and navy and suffered a humiliating defeat in 1905. The political unrest that bubbled in the people in response to the tsar's poor leadership carried over to the start of World War I, a war that Russia was underdeveloped and poor equipped to take part in. Nicholas II was not equipped to govern Russia through the war, as he was determined to cling to autocratic power. His incompetence in handling the issues created prior to the war only worsened them, leading to his demise. The atmosphere of World War I led to the fall of the Tsar's government as a result of the inadequate management by the Tsar himself in fixing the political, social, and military issues amplified by the war.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Definitely one of the military issues that we see the Tsar brought upon himself and the people of Russia was him taking the role as commander-in-chief. He did so against the personal command of his advisors, where 10 out of 12 of his administration voted no against him joining and becoming commander-in-chief of the army. Yet, to quote the Tsar in his reasoning for joining, he says, "My duty to my country, which has been entrusted by God, impels me today, when the enemy has penetrated into the interior of the empire, to take supreme command of the active forces and to share my army the fatigues of war." However, a Russian historian by the name of Shimansky states that instead of being the rallying point of the Russian people at war, the monarchy became their scapegoat by accepting de facto responsibility for anything else that might go wrong with the conduct of operations. Firstly, he had already a poor self-image to begin with. Tsar Nicholas II wasn't known to be an active military man, and on the home front, he looked and took the role as an unassuming middle-aged man just waiting for letters from his wife. Tsar came into a modern war that he was oblivious to adapt to. He disregarded the military professionalism at the time, where who he replaced, Grand Duke Nikolai Nikolaevich, was very modern and progressive, as seen with the successes against Austria-Hungary and Galicia in the fall of 1914, and even with the Great Retreat in the summer of 1915, was done with great strategy. Tsar Nicholas II escaped his responsibility as a leader in Russia. His unnecessary involvement in the war left him out of touch with the political turmoil at home as riots began. Nicholas only got partial telegrams of the issues at home. The effort he made at replacing his position with his wife proved fruitless, as public opinion of her and her relationship with the very mysterious monk Rasputin turned the public's views negative. However, historians argue that the Russian army was already in turmoil, with disgruntled soldiers and constant disagreements between the traditionalists and the modernists, as seen with the failures in Tannenberg and the Masurian Lake. In summary, Tsar Nicholas II abandoned the one role he was mildly competent at to become a sullying reminder of true weakness of the aristocracy. This fleeting decision was seized by revolution and the people. So we have a Tsar who's already on the front and a restless masses looking for structure and some sort of change in the government. The perfect environment for revolutionary overtake. Lenin sees the opportunity to lead the Russian working class towards the social democrats. Lenin saw the war as not only a war of aggressive militarization, but a war of power, hungry bourgeoisie international leaders using the proletariat populace as fighting slaves in the war. Lenin states, It's always been the policy of Prussian Junkerdom, headed by Wilhelm II and the big bourgeoisie of Germany, to defend the Tsar's monarchy. Lenin is advertently shifting the thought and blame on war, not just on the leaders of the Central Powers, but it was also the Tsar's own incessant need to suppress the proletariat power. As one of the leaders who is fighting this bourgeoisie war is the Tsar himself. So, Lenin's solution is to develop propaganda, quote, against the chauvinism and patriotism of the Filonists and the bourgeoisie of all countries without exception. In the struggle against the leaders of the present international who have betrayed socialism, it is imperative to appeal to the revolutionary consciousness of the working masses who bear the entire burden of the war. His tactic worked. Lenin's thesis was smuggled into Russian fronts, and soldiers became inspired to rebel and desert the army, with the Tsar now painted as the enemy of the people, and because he was unable to suppress revolution while out of the country, the Bolsheviks seized the will of the people and began to focus on winning the war by replacing the Tsar and starting the Russian Revolution.
Additionally, during World War I, the social condition of the peasants in Russia was poor. The Tsar implemented zemstvos, community-owned stretches of arable land, proved inadequate to supporting the farmers as they had to pay redemption payments to the state. The peasants had voiced their discontent and want for individually owned plots of land, but the Tsar refused because he figured if he put land up for grabs, many soldiers would return home from the war front. Farmers who had left the zemstvos to become industrial workers suffered overcrowded housing with poor sanitary conditions, long work hours, and inadequate wages. Food scarcity became a major problem as the Tsar ordered the printing of millions of ruble notes to finance the war. The inflation in 1917 had made food prices increase up to 4 times from what they had been in 1914. The Tsar turned his back on the social issues at home, as his main focus was the war front. His incompetence in solving the land, inflation, and food issues his people faced triggered the February Revolution of 1917, ultimately ending his reign.
So, I guess in conclusion we can say that Tsar Nicholas II was the primary cause for his own downfall and the eventual revolution. His inability to solve political issues by suppressing Bolshevik power and his very poor military strategies and the general fleeing of his own country and capital in order to do a meaningless job on the front. Anything else to add?
Sounds good to me.
Alright, comrade. Catch you later.